Alright, everybody. Hey, it is Saturday, August 22nd, 2020. And, I'm not going to talk much, but here's the master mumbler, the destruction of Democrats, Ed. Hell, it's just Ed. We know what he's like. Let's go, Ed.
Okay. I would like to thank you all for joining us again tonight. We're going to get into some issues that nobody is addressing. And this is the problem, that what's going on, and everybody's bitching instead of paying attention. You know, it really makes it a very frustrating situation, you know, when people are not paying attention what the real world is going on. You know, are we streaming by any chance?
Yes, we are streaming.
I was trying to find the streamline, but I don't see it. So, all right. Anyhow, want to get into tonight. Me and Chief Black Cloud, we've been going over a lot of these conversations, discussing, watching a lot of videos, calling and talking to numerous people. And so this is the point that people need to realize what's going on. And that includes in your own home. Because this virus, you got to think about it. Everybody's going, oh, well, you got to go to court, you got to wear a mask. But if we're in this pandemic and this fear is going on, this terrorizing fear has been implanted in all the children's mind, good point. Why are the courts opened? How come you're going to court? How come you're having trials and jury trials when, you know, there ain't no injured party? It's just to rake in money, rape, rob, and pillage. You know, it's interesting because you got a lot of these groups out there, you know, reserve your rights. They're trying to teach you this stuff that you are supposed to be having these rights. And they're out there charging people up to $5,000 a shot. And it's crazy. It's ridiculous. You know, I don't get how come people are paying these people money. You know, when it really comes down to it, because, you know, they're paying good money out to these people who have been destroying our communities. You know, some of these people out there, you know, they're talking, and I don't give a shit about your religious belief. That's your religious belief, and grow up and quit being a little child. It's your religious belief. The Constitution and the Indian Native treaties gives you that right, so long as that you are Native American, not an immigrant. Immigrants have no rights, and we have the laws, and I posted that up. I've done numerous talk shows over that on the air. I've done on the ears, too. And not only that, I have served the Colorado, the Louisiana, the Chicago, and the Ninth Circuit Court in San Francisco documents proving that they have a constitutional oath to protect the natives, not immigrants. And see, this is the point that people are not paying attention to what's really going on. When you're sitting out there going, oh, I got to protect an immigrant, but I'm not going to protect my family. You know, it's like this bullshit that they're going, opiate crisis costs $2.15 trillion. You know, and that's the amount that can be compensated for pain. What morons? You're taking the opiates to get rid of pain. And they're going, oh, you can take the money to go buy pain pills now. See, this is what I'm saying. There's no education. There's no intelligence. And it's scary. Because there is no opiate crisis, because your mommy and daddy didn't raise you responsible. You can't sit there and bitch and whine and grind and, you know, bitch that, oh, my uncle and my aunt or somebody committed, you know, they died of an opiate overdose. Well, as any doctor will tell you, you start out with a half a pill, you see how it works, before you move to a whole pill. Or you start out with a quarter pill to move to half pill to a whole pill or 3/4 of a pill. I mean, come on. I don't know what doctors you guys see, but, man, all the medical professionals that I have dealt with for off and on for, years that I've been dealing with, it says that. See, that's what sort of stuns me about people. I mean, this stuff says this stuff, but nobody's standing up to what's going on. I mean, it's like one of those things that it's so frustrating because we sat there and we went through possibly nuclear disasters. We went through World War I, World War II. We went through the Revolutionary War, the War of 1812, the War of 1830. If you get the Mexican and British War. That's the problem here. Nobody's paying attention to the real world. And so when people are not paying attention to the real world, it's like I'm watching this stuff, everybody's still pushing for Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is the most racist organization there is out there. How come they're not talking natives? How come it's all about the black man, the black woman? All right? Hey, I don't give a dog where you come from. It comes to a native country. You came to our country. All right? I mean, just because you were drug here, you could always have left. So it's not being rude. It's not being disrespectful. The point is coming to the point of call responsibility or quit bitching and be an adult. Because the United States of America, as you call it, or United States Incorporation, as you call it, is still owned by the Vatican and the Queen of England. I get all these idiots out there telling me, oh, that's not true, Ed. And it's like, the history documents are there. It's filed. Every state of the Union, all right, of the Union has to get clarification before they do certain things. Hawaii flies the British flag, where that terrorist came from, Obama came from Africa. And so when we're looking at this in the real world, I mean, come on, wake up. Are you that stupid? And if you're that stupid, please move to another country because, we're tired of having these immigrants coming into our country dictating to us how we're going to live in our country. You came to our country for a better life. Then listen and learn. That's why our Constitution says 5 or more generations before you're lawful. You have to earn your freedom. You have to earn your rights. And then people go, well, that's slavery. Well, you're damn right. It partly is because you had to earn your rights because that goes all the way back to the slavery days. That's the whole point. You don't come to our land and think that you get everything handed to you in a silver platter and you get new cars and, paid for by the public servants funds. Those funds are supposed to go under Title 28.3002 to the Native Americans. The interest from the banks, the banks get interest. They're only supposed to get 10%, and the rest of it's supposed to go back to the natives. It's an interesting how people don't read the banking laws. I watch all these people quoting this stuff on the internet, how they're acting like they know stuff, but they don't read the stuff. Or they're watching some video and they take the time bites out of it, but they don't read it. See, I mean, I put a whole bunch of instruments together all the time. People know that. This ain't a joke. The United States of America is promised a guarantee republic form of government. Not a Republican. Republic. Republican is a British title of nobility. Look it up. And I've actually put that up. It's called Republic. A man is supposed to be able to judge another man by his own fist or his own attitude. Or else you guys don't argue. 27 CFR 7.11 United States Incorporation define all crimes as commercial as a result of the fall of the Republic when the South walked out. See, I don't remember the South being the Republic. See, this is the one thing that I always remember when the South was fighting for democracy in the British government. But see, this is what gets to me when you read this stuff. You got to read the wording, because people will rewrite stuff to change it, and that's what they're doing right now with Biden and Kamala Harris running for election. She can't even be running for election. She's not even an American. She might have been born here. All right? But even in Yahoo and all these news channels and all these people are out there going, 5 or more generations. They're putting it out in the structure. 5 or more generations of 14th Amendment and stuff. You know, and these kids, they don't give a shit because they go by what the money is. They go by population, popular votes. You know, so this is the one thing that you got to comprehend. You know, and this is the one thing that people don't like it when I talk about the Bible enslaving people. Read it. I mean, when you go through it, because everything, if you're a nonprofit, you register through the state corporation or the county corporation as a nonprofit. That goes to the IRS. And the IRS is, what is that called? You know, fund, monetary fund, International Monetary Fund. So when you were born, they gave you a birth certificate to the state attorneys. So when your mother registered you with the state and gave it over, that says that the mommy is not responsible. Because the man cannot give the child over because the man wouldn't do that. Well, some men have done that in cases I worked with because I didn't know that the cops couldn't take my kid. And I'm like, are you that ignorant that you're not paying attention and doing research and spending that much time on your damn computer? And that's the one thing. And when you're putting your information together, like all my letters, I'm non-combatant, civilian, non-belligerent, lawful bloodline NATO of 48 states united, 1866. I do not put corporations. I do not put any of that structure. I even put in my letters the exemption of the mail, not using zip codes. And everybody goes, well, put the brackets in. Well, I don't need to put the brackets in. I put the actual law. It's called, what is that called? It's called DMM, Domestic Mailing Manual. Section 602 at 1.3E. And it's called the two-zone plan, improvement plan of zip codes, not required. I mean, and this is the other point. It's like, you know, when you put this 28 USC, I've been saying Title 18 for some crazy reason, but 28 USC 3002. The money is liability. That means that you are the debtor by your straw man account, your birth certificate in the capital letters. You know, and Rob Ryder does a wonderful video. So does the Lighthouse Law Club on how to own yourself. People have been hearing me preaching that for years. Own yourself. Own yourself. You can't do that, I'm told. Yes, you can. Own yourself. I mean, are you saying the state still owns you? That's what you're saying. See, if you want to be out of this mess, you've got to file to be out of the mess. Remember, the British government is the federal corporation called the United States. It has never changed. That's what the original Treaty of 1770 is about. And that was done with the natives. And then you go back to the Laramie Treaty, and that was done in the 1800s, and that was to confirm it. Not only that, in 1823, all the Supreme Court said that the Indian treaties are the law of the land. The native treaties are the law. Not your police departments, not your sheriff, you know, not your federal agents. You know, the only one that has authority is called the United States Federal Marshal. has authority. All the other ones don't. Let's not forget Franklin D. Roosevelt. They've been popularizing him on TV like crazy here. How he saved the country. How he did such a wonderful job putting us in, taking over our debt. You know, and that's when he did the birth certificate bond and made you a liability. So what they're running off is illegals that are get a birth certificate, so they're running the illegal structure, and they're billing them on both sides, three sides, the illegals, but then they're coming back and billing you for the illegals. I mean, they got this thing down. I mean, when you start reading these codes, these administrative codes that, you know, me and the chief have been posting up here, and you start reading these administrative codes and bouncing back and forth to A, Z, T, back to B, and then going back to C, and then back to M, and then back to 2, and then back to Q. You know, you bounce around and you start reading these things, and then you start putting them in a chronicle order, and you start going, holy dog shit. This is what we're living? I mean, come on, the courts are still open. You know, got to keep that damn dragon eating. You know, feed the monster, feed the monster. It's called Elected and Public Employees Union. Quit calling it anything else but the Elected and Public Employees Union. See, I mean, I like to talk to these people, and I like to get the names out there and talk about the real truth of who's raping, robbing, and pillaging these people. Union members, clergy. You know, oh, I can do this and God's going to forgive me. I grew up with that mentality. I thought it was always worked when I grew up. Well, God's going to forgive me? But I could rape, rob, and pillage, and God's going to forgive me? I thought that was a work mentality. Who's God? What God? Why is there a God? And why are you allowed to do that and be protected when nobody else does? And nobody else is allowed to be protected in that way. Especially like what the Democrats have been doing. Depends on whose bed you sleep in. So, like I said, when it comes down to it, when you register your kid with the state, the state becomes the daddy of the child. Because now you gave him a man in your life, in his life or her life. That's called the Bar Association, the British Auxiliary Register, the King and Queen of England. It still exists. It has never died. You know, come on, people. I mean, you got to wake up to this truth of what you're living. This is not a fantasy what's going on. You know, that's why I claim I'm not a United States citizen, and I've had people yelling at me, I'm a citizen. I said, so you're taking the title of nobility. Oh, no, you can't do that. Well, you're a citizen. Go really read the 14th Amendment. And read the 13th Amendment at the end, and then when the 14th Amendment, you read that in the middle and the end, and then it brings up the 14th or 13th Amendment in the end of it. That's why I say to people, read this stuff. People don't want to read. That's the problem. I'm not an inhabitant. I've made these mistakes before in court and in my paperwork calling me a citizen. I've even done that and made an ass out of myself, called me a sovereign citizen, made an ass out of myself years ago. Inhabitant, well, I knew franchise, no, and I knew the ward and the property and all that, because I don't claim property, I claim soil ownership. You know, municipality, body, you know, and that's the city, county, and state. Statute, codes, and administrative rules. That's what follows by the church members, elected and public employees, and most of all, immigrants and immigration. Immigration doesn't have a free reign in this country. And that's the one thing that people got to quit pushing this idea. You know, we got to save the world. No, let the world save itself. Because if we don't save ourselves with food, water, clothing, we're done, folks. You haven't even seen what's coming down the pike yet. You know, I'm expected to have my wall up. Now I got to deal with the major medical again. Still dealing with my heart and my kidneys and my spine and everything else. And now I got to go deal with my teeth now. Because in the last year and a half, they all fell out, and so I got to, that's money I don't have, so I got to figure out how, what, why, and how. So I'm in learning the paperwork, but also, too, I want to make sure that before I start going on that paperwork, writing off my stuff on a 1099 form or something like that, and especially using a GMEI utility, I want to make sure that I've got the I's crossed and the I's dotted and T's crossed. I want to make sure I'm doing it so that way I don't have to look back. I want to take that roller coaster ride and go enjoy the roller coaster ride. I don't want to sit there and have to look back and all of a sudden the roller coaster is going to break down. I don't want that. And I don't want that for anybody else, because I want to make sure that when we do this process, we're doing it so that's the way it protects you and us. We got these people out there charging $5,000. I don't have to give you all these names. You already know who they are. You're on Facebook. You get calls from these people, too. You talk to them. But, see, they're charging all this money. People are paying this stuff. And, I've done this to numerous people. And I've had numerous people send them out the documents, information, talk to them on the phone, have suggestions on things. I can't tell you what to do because you're supposed to be your own mommy or daddy. I give you ideas and suggestions, but you have to make your own rational and logical position. You can't sit there and make an excuse going, oh, I didn't know. Well, it ain't going to work. So the other point, too, is to look up the CFR, Code of Federal Regulation. It's learning how your public employees are paid. And remember, banks cannot loan debt notes. They can't loan money. That's Title 12. Read this stuff. That's treason against the Treasury. That's Title 12, 1.199. That's the Comptroller's Department. Can't loan money. Banks can't own property. So foreclosures, oh my God, they can't own property. So when you're going in there, they're sitting there hiring their gun-toting bullies. That's why I suggest people file on them criminally now. You can't wait next week. If you know you're going to be in a problem in the next month, start researching now. Shut your doors. Start locking yourself in and getting this stuff done. Because we're not done with this COVID virus ride. You haven't seen nothing until January. When they put all these new regulations in. All right? Because they're talking about if you don't, that's why I got my papers and doing all this stuff. Because I got it filed in the hospital. Here you want, I know who to sue. Who I have to file charges on. And so you got to know how to do that, but you don't say, when they're going after somebody, you walk away. It's like in Star Wars movies, where the troopers come up to the guy, and the guy waves his hand and goes, you don't see me. And the guy goes, these are not them, this is not the guys we're looking for. See, that's the part of the movie Star Wars people don't get. They're looking for the corporation liability. They're not looking for a living man. And I've actually been through that a couple of times where the cops pulled me over and, trying to argue with me and, you got a warrant, and I don't know what you're talking about. And I know other people have done the same thing. But you don't sit there and go after and start stirring the pot and go after the guy in the bar or, his home or stuff like that, like some people have done. You don't do that. It's called respecting your elected and public employees. When we got elected and public employees that are doing and honoring their servitude, that's the point. We have to respect them, back them up, and take care of their family. That's what America is really about. All these guys are out there, charging all this stuff and doing all this crazy stuff. You got to take care of your public servants and your neighborhood. Before religion. Religion is going to be there one way or the other, but if you don't have plants, if you don't have your garden growing, you don't have water, Religion ain't going to save you. Praying ain't going to save you, because it's your responsibility to plant food, grow food, and collect rainwater and protect yourself. See, I mean, we've been so brought to our knees in praying and pleading instead of being men or women. I mean, back in the old days, some women you didn't even mess with. They were more dangerous than men were. Even today, some women are still dangerous, more dangerous than men are. See, but I mean, and that's the point, is knowing who, what, why, and how. You know, and so that's the one thing, is reading the national, you know, the charter on the banks. Reading Chapter 3 of the Federal Reserve Code, or especially Chapter 4 of the taxation. And the biggest one people should read in Title 12 is Part 5, crimes and offenses. Offense could be farting in a classroom, and the fart was offenses to the other students. Then you see a poor kid publicly humiliated out in handcuffs because he farted. You know, I just waiting to see that those guys who handcuffed those kids and done that, I just waiting for them to be blindsided on the side of a corner. People say, well, that's really nice to wish on somebody. Well, I mean, I'm not really wishing them on it, but man, look what they did to that child. Look at the humiliation they did to that child. Those guys have no respect for the child, and then why should anybody have respect for their children? So, I mean, and that's the point. We've got to get back to being respectful and honorable in our areas and territories. I don't like the word communities. You know, because I'm not a community. I mean, we're living men and women. We're supposed to be gathering. You know, we're supposed to have our firewalks and our fire talks. And we ain't doing that anymore. Kids don't even know their history. Especially when the TV came in the 1920s and 30s. When that came in, that started running everybody's home. See, that's why when it comes down to the deal with the bank foreclosures on your property, you know, we're going to be writing more stuff up, but right now I'm working on the children's stuff, and I'll get into that here in a minute. And I mean child support, but, you know, when you go through this and they're coming after your property or they're coming after your car or something like this, you've got to go after them. And people say, oh, you can't do that. I'll wait. I'll pray to God. That's going to be a miracle that's going to happen. And then they're like, they took my car. They took my house. Well, where's your God? Where's your miracle? What happened to God? And I'm not being disrespectful when I say this to you, people. God gave you the tools and the material. He gave you the books to read to figure out the game that was created by, you know, your servants. If you want to go that route. So God gave you the material. God gave you the rights. God gave you this stuff to start thinking. Now, because, you know, you were raised up and dumbed down, and psychologically, like 80%, I would actually guarantee you 60% of the public has been 100% dumbed down. You can tell it. You can tell in the way people are walking when you're watching these kids in their phone and they're walking into a telephone pole, walking into a fire hydrant, walking into a bench. Yes, it's funny as hell. You know, but then again, if these guys weren't paying attention and they were actually living life, they wouldn't be going through that. They wouldn't go through the psychological trauma and the pain through their back and neck and bending over and doing all this stuff. See, I mean, most of the stuff is so preventable. You know, and that's the one thing, is that you got to realize the banks have limitations what they could do. And that is Title 1295 U.S. Code. That's emergency limitations restriction of business members of the Federal Reserve. All right? Your banker is a member of the Reserve. Your vice president, your president of your local bank. You know, that's the one thing. As an example, like state defined. We know what state means. National Banking Association. There goes the national. Now that comes under international banking with the federal government of Washington, D.C., who runs federal government called Parliament. You know, I always love challenging. I put this stuff all the time. They write the codes, administrative rules, like I say, on our call here all the time. They wrote it, we quote it. They wrote the administrative rules, we're quoting it. Here we go. You know, so the other thing is comprehending what comp controller is, and this is what goes on with child support, too. Because I'm going to get a few more things before I start diving into some of this child support issue. And then we'll get the floor open up here. But see, the thing is that if the banking situation is the bank is the court, when you walk in that courtroom, and that yellow fringe flag is flying, and the banker is that judge, that's right, now he's the banker. And so he's telling you what to do, and you never filed your paperwork. You know, I mean, I'm dealing with a few people right now that are whining and bitching because they sent money to people, and it's like, well, you sent them money, and it's like, what am I supposed to do now? Well, I'm getting ready to go to court in 10 days or 2 weeks, and I'm like, well, you already paid them $5,000, or this guy $2,000, you know, this other guy $1,500. So what am I supposed to do? I sent you all the stuff that I sent you all this stuff. Go read it and figure it out then. You know, and everybody keeps telling me, you bury me with so much stuff then. And I'm going, yeah, well, that's the point. You got to read. You got to educate yourself. Put it in a flash drive. Save it. You'd be surprised what you can learn. So, and then this is the other point that comes down to, that I already brought you the stuff with the legal structure on the birth certificate, but this comes the illegal entry or identity identifier. So this means that the legal identity identifier. So that means the name on the birth certificate and your signature, not an autograph. People will tell you a signature and autograph are the same thing. I've seen it in Black Law Dictionary, but it's reading the paragraph, what the words say. See, people forget a couple words in a paragraph of what the whole thing brings out the whole truth. And that's the one thing, when they miss that paragraph, they don't get it. So when they go to court, they don't know how to argue with the judge. So like I said, you know, when all crimes are commercial, they're already paid off of the public trust. CFR 27. Let me bring that back up. Somehow my machine is doing what it wants again. But this goes to CFR 72.11. All crimes are commercial, so it goes to the public trust. That comes to the EMEI utility. And you can type in your Social Security number, it comes up where everything's traded on your Social Security and your information's all there. And see, that's the whole point. You know, we're bringing this stuff up for you guys to learn, and we want you to learn because we're learning too. Some of the stuff we know, we're just putting together the pieces because we knew this stuff. Now we'll be able to start putting it together by state and federal and all this stuff. And see, that's the one thing that you got to remember. All commercials are crimes because it goes against, what was that? The revenue laws. See, and this is one thing that people don't realize, that when it goes against the revenue laws, that way when you pay taxes and kidnapped and held for ransom and, you know, they're sending you bills, and that's the other point when you get child support or tax bills in the mail. Save them. They're doing mail fraud, extorting money by using mail for mail fraud. And I haven't finished writing all that up. I've been busy on some projects, as everybody knows. I've been talking to a lot of people bouncing around the last week, too. And so, you know, I mean, there's only so much in one day one guy can do. So, and it's like, this is the one thing that, you know, your birth certificate is the banking bond, like for schools, jails, public safety. And I mean real public safety. not them coming after you, writing you a ticket to rape, rob, and pillage. And see, this is the other thing. It's supposed to pay back to the natives, Native Americans, 1890. Now, I didn't write that part. This is actually in the code, in the law. 31 U.S.C. 3123. Payment, obligation, and interest on the public debt. See, they're supposed to pay back to natives. This is in their own writing, their own paperwork. So if your bloodline goes back to 1890, that means that the 14th Amendment, you're lawful, because they already had this argument going back in 1770. That was part of the original First Supreme Court of 1779. See, they already did all this. The natives, and they did this. They wanted to have this system. So, all right, the Indians say, all right, we said, all right, instead of just slitting throats, we'll just try to do this democratically. All right? But see, democracy ain't working. That's why we want the Republic form of government, because the Republican form of government, we wouldn't put up with it. Go ahead.
They wanted to do it which way? You said democratically. Wait, what is it? Republic or democratic? Which one?
It's a republic form of government that we want.
Right.
They've been trying to convince us to do it democracy in a democratic way, and we're already seeing what it's already destroyed and what it's already done to the families what's doing right now to the budget.
Right, but you said instead of slitting throats, let's do it democratically.
That's what I said. I'm trying to, I'm trying to do that so we're not just at war.
I know, but are we going for democracy now? Democratically?
We're going in a republic form of fashion, and that way if we don't have the meeting of the minds, we're going to have to do what we have to do.
Okay, so instead of slitting throats, do it republic-wise, right?
Right.
Just clarifying, because we don't want you to misspeak accidentally and get people thinking it's a democracy all of a sudden.
Oh, hell no, no way, I never sell my soul to that hell. Alright, but see, this is the one thing, when you read these administrative rules of the commercial structure, I mean, they've got this stuff written going all the way back that it's supposed to pay the natives. This goes back to, Title 28, 3002. It says it right there. There's other stuff that says obligation and bonds and payment of debt, and how it's supposed to pay back to the natives through when they sit there and pay the water, electricity bill, and the bail, and the courts, and all that, because that money they generate is supposed to go back to the people instead of going to their retirement and party slush funds. I mean, they used to do that until it started after Peanut Man. When Peanut Man got elected, the country started really going, and then we got that with Nixon, and then Clinton didn't help. So, but this is the one thing that, looking up this, and accepting a gift. You never want a gift. If I get a barter situation, a guy gives me a gift, okay, he gives me something, I'll give him a pocket knife. All right? Hey, they can't sit there and try to use that corporation tactic on you. I don't care if you give them a used straw. I bartered, I gave them something in exchange. They can't say anything wrong. And that's the point, realizing the banking bonds of your birth certificate. That's why if you don't file to own yourself. And then that way if you're not filing on your children, because you can't use that until they're 18. And so you have to put that in the records that, if the state wants to use it right now and all that, whatever they're doing, but when a kid's 18, he has the right to sue the state. Because you had no choice on the unauthorizing point of it, because you were put in a position. Because they didn't honor their oath of servitude. Oh, was that fictitious or false or fraudulent cases? And that goes in the criminal tax manual. And that's the one thing, you can always write this down, look it up, the criminal tax manual, 22.00. And I've been through some of this stuff. It is interesting when you read this stuff. You know, I mean, I'm amazed half the stuff that they get away with because people don't read their administrative rules because they bring this stuff on and they act like it's God. And that's the point. You got to remember, they're talking to you like it's God. Who's God? What God? Why is their God better than my God? See, this is the one thing that goes to the Medical Foreign Servant Administration Foreign Act of 1938. Oh, what is that called? FARA. And see, this, you got to remember, a lot of public employees were pissed when FARA was put in. You know, because that even attacked and even went against, what was that? Franklin D. Roosevelt. So all the public employees going the way Franklin D. Roosevelt trying to put this country into the British hands, Parliament hands, you know, at least they gave us some right to protect ourselves and our children. So when you look at these things of how to do it, you know, also, I mean, and this is the point, you know, you get into reading this stuff. And I'm going to bring Chief on here in a minute. And then we'll open up the floor, but because we got a couple things we wanted to go over with. And so I hit most of this point. I know I missed another point that I wanted to get in, but you want to read and do the education and look up the structure, you know, with monetary funds, the IRS. Type in the IRS, do you pay labor or not? See, this is the one thing you'd be surprised what you type in and come up with this stuff. You know, it is totally amazing when you start really stepping out and reading this and walking the walk. Because remember, what is that? Official, a public official, any public official, including the dog catcher, the sweet creamer, anything is known as a person. If you're known as a person, that means you have no rights. Are you that person or this person? I'm no person. You know, and that's the one thing. Remember, the Sixth Amendment guarantees you the right to counsel, not a lawyer, not an attorney. Counsel. And that's even written in federal administrative rules, and that's even in the books of 22 U.S.C. 612, the FAIR Act. Says it right there in the Act. So anyhow, let's go ahead and open up, bring up Chief, and then we'll open up the floor.
Yeehaw!
There you go. So now we're going to get into the other point before I let you go, because we had a deal that we wanted to get into, but I want people to comprehend. Your government agency, your mayor, city council, courts, any of them, by federal law, it's a federal law that says they cannot ask for your Social Security card. That's Social Security Section 208, Social Security Act. So go ahead, Chief. Let's get into what we were talking about earlier.
Well, that's the other one. The part on that, the Social Security card back in 1936, it actually said an account on it, so it is an account. Okay, the actual way that was designed was, in reality, it was supposed to be an 80-20% split, 80% for the government to get itself back on its feet with a 20% turn, okay, for the people, but they had to give a 5% tax rebate on top of that for travel, okay? So basically it came out to 75-25 split. On the 25 split, they're trading you at $2 million a year. That's $500,000 a year you were supposed to receive in benefits. How many people's lives would be different if you had $500,000 a year you could write off? You know, I mean, seriously, would we be, you know, without housing, without food, without, you know, teeth in our head? You know, how would our physical situation be? You know, and that's the other one. They don't want to teach you how to do this stuff. You know, they want you to go through hoops and loops, you know, but, you know, let's take a look at it. You know, cream rises to the top. You know, that's the way it is. There are some people that, you know, you're just not going to be able to give this information to. I mean, you know, my days, you know, I've tried to hang out with the football crew and some of the, you know, sports crews, but, you know, their thought process was, let's get drunk on the weekends and beat up on each other. That just wasn't the way I like to roll, you know, and we've figured out some other things because, you know, they're supposed to have licensing out here. According to them, the bar card allows them to do several things. Although, here's the interesting part, because in 1999, okay, I'm sure everybody probably heard Prince's song or somebody's song of how happy we were going into the year 2000. 1999, the actual bankruptcy ended. So for the last 21 years, they have been fleecing us, and they have continued to fleece us. They're doing a flotational contract. Flotational contracts can be modified at any point in time. There's different forms. If you're going to go by the tax forms, one of the things that they have, which one of the people put up, what they're using in the courtrooms are standard form 273, 274, and 275. Okay, that's going to be your bid bond, your performance bond. Your standard forms are going to be 273, 274, and 275. 273 is going to be your bid bond. 274 is going to be your performance bond. 275 is going to be your payment bond. Okay, performance is what they're trying to do and what they're trying to get out of you. Okay, they're trying to get you put in a jailhouse because they know they're going to make more bonds that way. Not only that, but let's take a look at the old days. I mean, if you want to go by that book, it says free us from bondage. Well, take the word, split it apart. You got bond, you got age. Okay, bond needs a maturity of its age in order to pay out. Okay, this is really what's kind of going on with the COVID-19 stuff. But then you have the government standard, GSA, government something rather. But it comes out that they have a standard form 24, they have a standard form 25, and standard form 25A. This is also going to coincide with the other ones that I just mentioned. You're going to have a bid bond. They put it up for auction. Okay, Fidelity Investments insures that. Okay, the discount, what is that? Discount DTCC. Discount trust and something. It'll hit me here. But that also goes with the GMEI. Okay, and what that is they're putting it up for sale. Okay, so we were thinking about this, Ed and I. We have a tendency to talk to each other probably about, I don't know, at least once a day or every other day. And one of the things we were bouncing around this week was, well, if you're auctioning off bonds, number one, where's your auctioneer's license at?
Yeah, and your bond.
Well, and then they are operating in bank, which is ENBAC, okay, because they're administrators of the Bankruptcy Act. Okay, so you're operating in bank. Well, where's your banker's license at? Where's your broker's license at? Where's your contractor's license
all
at?
This stuff.
And then, say the bank repossesses a car. We won't even go into the repossession of a property, okay? Which car is property? Everything's property. Even you are property. Okay, that's the way they roll with it. Okay,
oh, wait,
so let's think about it.
You gotta remember, human capital, William Jefferson Clinton, Executive Order 13037, March 3rd, 1997, made you collateral of the corporation. Go ahead.
Well, that's where it comes to, that's why you have human resources at your job.
Yep.
So, the other one, so let's say they actually take your car from you, okay, and they want that for payment because you signed a contract. Okay, well, where's your NADA license, National Auto Dealers Association license? Okay, well, where's your real estate license? Okay, and there's a few other ones that we picked out of the air that we were talking about. And, seriously, the way things are going right now, and I don't know if anybody's been updated, but Trump just put out within the last, 72 hours, maybe 4 days, he's returning 350,000 children from the court systems because they're basically running a human traffic situation.
Right.
And then within the last 72 hours, I know for fact.
Interesting, not to cut you off, Chief, but see, you get all these groups out there going to take credit for all these kids coming and being released, saying we did all this stuff, and they're all non-profits, and they're bullshit. Now, there's been men like me and the Chief and several other women and groups that have been doing this stuff, and we know the truth. We know what the truth really is. And so it really gets to me is when you got all these groups out there trying to take credit for, oh, we did this. Pay attention to what's going on, who's going on, and who's sitting there screaming the loudest. So go ahead, Chief.
Well, then when you get to the nonprofit, seriously, a Federal Reserve note is a bill of exchange. It's a promise to pay later, but it's a promise of the government to pay the people back for using this collateral. Okay, now you'll hear people out here and they're talking about, well, you got to become a secured party creditor. Okay, well, you're still creating bonds and seals. Okay, and I'm really not into, putting my brothers and sisters or children into bondage. That's not my thought process. We're trying to free people up. We're also trying to free your minds up. That's the real thing. And the way you do that is, you've got to get into studying it, because there's going to come a time where you're probably going to get a tap on the door and there's going to be some nitwit on the other side of it dressed probably in all black, and they're going to grill you. They're going to want to know how much you know. And if you don't know how to answer and you don't know how to deal with them, the first thing they'll be like, is your name? You don't never answer to that. What's in a name? That's the whole reason they said that. What's in a name? You have a calling.
You're bringing that up. I get that into this one, because 3 days ago I had a census guy come up on my property, and I was laying on the bed, I'm working on a computer, and I didn't hear him, and he walks in my fucking front door. My dog is like, "Arr," and I just come out, and it's like, and he's like, and I said, get the fuck out of my door. So he walked out, and he got, went to his car real quick. He goes, well, I'm a census taker, and I have rights, and, census is the law going back to 70. I said, the census was done for the British government to track immigrants. He goes, well, that's true, and so that's what I'm doing, the census. I said, I'm not an immigrant. I'm a native. And you guys should already have that in your paperwork. It's already filed, so what the hell are you doing on my property? We want to get killed? Oh, no, I don't want to do that, and it's like the guy is going off on this, and we have rights, and it's like, no. You don't have rights because I'm not an immigrant. And I know the treaty, and we got talking about the treaty in the first Supreme Court of 17, filing in 1778, and the Supreme Court of 1779, and the guy knew just as much as I did, and we were talking. He's been in the system for years, and so it's like, so if you know this, then why are you trying to harass me? Well, it's the law, you have to do that. And I said, no, it's not the law. It's called a statute, administrative code. And he goes, well, that's true, you are right. And I said, so why would you sit there and harass me then? So, that's what I'm saying, is that watch these guys when they do this. Call their bluff, and I do it all the time with these people. You come on my property, you think you have rights? No, you don't. I paid for this. I paid with it with my injuries. So go ahead, Chief.
I don't know. They have rights. I have the right to shoot them. They have that right to get shot, don't they?
Well, that's true.
They have the right to get hurt.
A bad elk case that went back in 1902 when he was an actual cop for the tribe, and the other tribal cops tried to come after him and arrest him for something that was set up, like they've done to shut your mouth up. So he killed 3 of them, and the Supreme Court said he had the right to defend his home. So that's the one thing, people, you got to pay attention to this stuff. You really do. And that's the point, bringing this stuff up with the human trafficking. And all these people is like, they're pushing the Biden and Kamala Harris, and Kamala Harris has already proven she's first generation. They say she's on this country. I don't even know if she's first generation. Could you prove it? People are going, that's like Kate Brown. Kate Brown was born in Spain, and they're going, well, her parents are in the Air Force. I don't give a shit. The Constitution doesn't say you can go be born in another country and come on this soil. It was written that way so we didn't have foreigners coming into our country and taking it. That's why it says 5 or more generations. That's why it says, 25 years to be a mayor or whatever. You get 18, you could be a mayor now. And, to be a president or a senator or congressman, what is the technical age? Is 35. And then when they sat there and they said that, we don't have term limits and stuff, remember, we had term limits. A senator could do 1 2-year term, and the House could do 1 4-year term. Once they did one or the other, they couldn't run for office again. They didn't get a retirement staple. They only got paid at the time when they were employed. You know, this is all in the structure. And don't forget, when you deal with these people, 4 U.S. Code 101, oath by members of legislators and officers. That means your cop, your employee, your dog catcher is an officer. Legislators and officers. See, and people don't comprehend how that really reads. But when you read this whole thing, and anybody wants it, I put it up all the time, and this deals with the slavery and the structure of the 13th and 14th Amendment, you know, in violation of color law, and that's U.S.C. 872. And, you know, we don't want socialism, and, you know, this is the stuff that we've been fighting with for hundreds of years to stop this. And now we're living this structure because these kids have been so indoctrinized. And I mean, you know, it's funny when these people are putting their kids up on the internet, you know, yelling and screaming at their mother and dad, I don't want to sit there and do my chores, I don't want to do homework. And they're yelling at their parents, you know, they're 13, 14, 16 years old. You know, acting like little 3-year-old spoiled brats. So when you really want to know the stuff on Social Security, you got to read FELONY, HELVERING versus Davis, 301 U.S. 619, 1937, the Social Security Act that gave the right for Social Security to be lawful, not legal. They already crossed that threshold. It was a commitment, and that was for natives, so that way if it was lawful, the only ones that could be in Social Security was lawful bloodline natives. You couldn't come in this country and get Social Security. I don't give a shit what age you are. We're not liable. That's the problem, that people think that we're supposed to take care of them in the world. You know, we're not to take care of the world. We're to take care of our families first. You know, and that's the one thing that people don't realize. Taxes. Natives are not to pay taxes. It even says it in the actual Constitution. And all the Indian trees. So that's what gets to me. You know, though people are so convinced that if you don't pay this tax, this business is not going to run. Not true. What was that we discovered on that one? You there, Chief?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was just going to mention if you actually really want to get into something, it's actually
yours.
It's a 264-page book. You can probably get most of it within the first 60-some-odd pages of it. But it's how to cancel the bank loans, and it's done by Thomas Schaaf, S-C-H-A-U-F. And to give you kind of a little, you know, if you're not into this stuff and, you know, you're worried about, you know, reading the stuff, he's a little, repetitive in here. But the thing about it is that's kind of the way it works out. You know, when you're in court, once you go to the third level of asking the same question, you know, that's where you've kind of got them in a boxed-in situation. But it's America's hope to cancel bank loans without going to court. Who funded the bank loan check? Borrower or banker? The bank loan concealment revealed. If the bank paid their debt, you would be out of debt. You be the judge and the jury and decide if a bank loan is bank robbery in reverse. And you see, basically what you're doing is they want to get you into a contract. It's how the Admiralty Maritime situation works. They want to get you into some kind of lease, agreement, contract, documents, and, you know, instrument they call it, covenant, treaty. Treaties are probably the best situation out there because it's really a one-on-one situation or a group effort with the government, you know, two opposing teams. But the interesting part is he's actually a former CPA for the banking industry, and he switched sides because he saw what was going on. And, you know, a lot of people don't know it. You go in there and what you're doing is you're giving up your rights to them to control you, okay, by signing a contract. Assets. You know, and what they do, say you get a house for, we'll just use $100,000 for you know, example. You go in there and you sign a contract and you're going to borrow $100,000. What they don't tell you is they take that immediately to the Treasury, use your Social Security number, and remove it from the Treasury. You have 90 days before closing on that.
Right.
Okay.
To claim the money yourself. And you have to file a claim document.
And that's the idea is we're not taught this stuff. That's why you have to read. And if you can't read it, try to find it on a YouTube situation. There's plenty of people out here that actually read the stuff to you. So, but there's that one. And then, let's see, I had another one. The fraud of bank loans, which is about 60 pages. The fraud of bank loans and the theft of labor by the U.S. banking system. And look at it. It says theft of labor. Okay, they expect you to go out and slave for them. You got into a contract saying, okay, you can be the trustee of my account at your bank facility. That's where if you actually have things in the private, you can actually become the banker yourself because you're the one loaning the credit out anyway. And that's why we ask you to read because, a lot of stuff Ed and I have read and we're coming together on making some stuff and putting some stuff together. And it doesn't come overnight. It really doesn't come overnight because you have to cover all the bases. And trust me. Yeah,
because then all of a sudden you'll find one form or something else and you're going, holy mackerel, that should go here.
Yeah. And you may have to rearrange them. You may have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then all of a sudden something pops up and you're like, well, actually, I need to put that in the third slot and move everything down one. So,
or take the third slot out. I didn't realize that would put me into jeopardy.
Exactly. Just by the words, and that's really it. It really has a lot to do with their wordage. And, that's the other one. We're about to start shifting on words because 8,500 years ago, there was a thing called quantum syntax verbiage. The easiest way to describe this to anybody, if you've been in the music industry, there's a certain beat for that certain note or certain tone that you're trying for. Okay, and that's the idea.
What was his name? Miller was doing?
Yeah, David hyphen whatever that is, however you used to do it. And Elliot J. Gould, which, a lot of people, kind of laugh at him, but what they did was they actually looked at the Postmaster General situation, and they also looked at the flags. Okay, so what they found out was the flag had not been captured, that it actually had to be put up in a certain area in a certain fashion. And, these guys did thousands upon thousands of hours of work to do this. And Elliot J. Gould and David Wynn Miller basically went out there and they actually got it fully invested into the United Nations, okay? And they also did it here to where it was actually done in an allodial situation, meaning it was true to form by the way they actually printed it up. So they actually put the, that's why Trump changed all the flags. A lot of people don't get that. That's why Trump changed all the flags, because it's registered now. It's been recorded and registered as the United States flag. Okay.
Not as the United Nations captured flag.
Exactly. So, and that's the interesting one, because when you're actually walking into these courts and you see the gold-fringed flag, even though they tell you that's an army flag or, a military flag.
And you can't ask them to have it removed.
Because it is not recorded and it is not registered. That's what Ed and I found out. And that's what they found out. It is not registered and it is not recorded. So therefore, they're actually acting in their private capacity.
So that's why you want the flag removed before you walk into that thing, and you have a paper document to have it removed before you go to court.
Or you can bring your own flag in. That's the interesting one.
That's the other point.
So, and it's
and do not bring the United States flag in, because that's a war flag.
Exactly.
You got to realize, bring a native flag in, because if you bring that war flag, you're putting war against the United States.
Well, and then you're putting a challenge with them. That's the other one. That's the other one I don't think anybody comprehends right now. We're in a state of emergency because of COVID-19.
Yeah, that was done deliberately.
Okay, yeah, but at the same time, and I just checked on that today, it actually covers 48 states. okay, as of today. So since we're in a state of emergency, in reality, all these courts should be suspended right now. There should be no actions in court because they're going by codes and statutes. Okay, they can't even lean on the Lieber Code at this point in time. They would actually have to go to the Geneva Convention or the Red Cross's situation. Okay, now that would kind of maybe, lean into...
I want Geneva Convention because I don't want the Red Cross because that's the structure of Britain and Nazi Germany.
Well, if you take a look at the actual fold of the situation, I mean, when you unfold a square, that's exactly what it does. It makes the Red Cross. It also makes the cross. If you take a box apart, you actually get the cross that the Christians may use. So, that's what people don't comprehend. I mean, it takes time to study this stuff. It takes time to figure these things out because they're always trying to shift, and trying to confuse you in the words. That's why we say, you should get yourself a dictionary, preferably an older one. And there's several ways of looking it up. The other one that we were bouncing off back and forth this week was when you go into that court, they're using like Anderson's or Black's Law or Tomlin's or Blackstone or whatever they got out there.
Right.
Okay. Open that book up. Within the first four pages usually, it's going to have a copyright in it. And nobody has really used this in a court of law. Okay? Do you have permission to use that book from the people that put the book out with an affidavit or verification of some kind of paperwork that you're allowed to use their copyright? Because that is copyright infringement. And, a lot of people just don't
comprehend it.
Well, you've got to give it a little bit of common sense, a little common knowledge. That's what we're trying to get you, is get knowledge in your head, and then you yourself can figure out for yourself. I mean, it really is, as, religions go, it's your personal walk with your creator, okay? You atone at the end of this travel, okay? It's like anything, if you're traveling down the road, you're gathering this and gathering that. If you're in the barter system, you're going to trade off something for something else that you need. Even some of these games that they're, playing on videos, you got to have so many, coins to buy this. You got to have energy to do that, So it's basically the same principle. The difference here is you're living a real life game here, and they're not playing around. They're really not playing around. They're trying to target people with the sovereign citizen situation now, which is like being part of Antifa or Black Lives Matter. Okay, but I have yet to see a sovereign citizen out there burning something to the ground or smashing a window. And seriously, sovereign citizen is an oxymoron. Okay, you cannot be both. You're either sovereign or you're citizen. And we natives don't like to use either one because that's not our curriculum. That's not the way things were when we were here.
The title of nobility, we don't want it.
Exactly. And what we want is respect. RESPECT, and seriously, you got to find out what that means to you. Okay. And, like other people have been out here and been talking about it, my rights are probably as far as I can stretch my arms or my legs. Okay. As long as I'm not stepping on yours, I'm not harming you or damaging any property you have. Okay.
I don't care if I offend you. That doesn't mean anything.
No. Well, that
because you're feeling hurt. Oh, too bad.
Well, that leads back to sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. It's kind of funny that old school stuff needs to kind of come back for these youngsters because they really don't get that. We used
to always all the time and go, "Would you shut up?" Now it's drilled in our head. We can't get it out.
Oh, yeah, but, that's the idea. They were actually trying to give us some information back then. They really were. And it was in the simplest form. Mm-hmm. So, but, this is what we do. This is, and seriously, right now with all this stuff going on, this is the best time to be looking stuff up. There's 50 million people out here that just signed up for unemployment.
Didn't mean to overrun you on that one. We're writing your paperwork, getting it out, and the other one I want to jump in before I hand it back to you is called Office of Personal Management. Establish higher rate of basic pay for groups of position to addresses existing like in significant handicaps. Okay, and recruiting. These are recruiting efforts for the government, so this is how they get paid or their bonus plan when they recruit more. And so you got to realize that when they're bouncing your Social Security number, they got to recruit that Social Security number too in the military, and you don't even know if they did it or not. So go ahead.
When they do that, you can probably find out on the DD-214 form, because when you're in the military, they file a DD-214 on you. Okay. And in order to, really get your head wrapped around it, that's one of the things you want to dump when you get out of the military. And if not, then you want to actually explore the DD-214. And really, there's a lot of the Veterans Administration stuff that is not being taught to the veterans. They're allowed a certain amount of money, if you want to call it that, or a certain amount of credits, in order to keep their health. And they're not abiding by that. And you've seen it. You've seen Wounded Warriors out here with Trace Atkins and quite a few other people that are trying to help people, but they're going under the British monarchy type situation or
right.
The governmental political version of it. And we really got to get back to the private side of it. Everybody's jumping all over Trump about the Postal Service. He's trying to end the government being involved in the Postal Service. He's not trying to take it down.
Back in so we get the Postal Service back as we the people instead of the corporation.
Exactly.
Because when they privatized the Postal Service, I believe it was in 72. That's when everything broke out, because I worked for the Postal Service in 80 to 82, and that's when they started going after people for Class 1 license, and I didn't have a Class 1 license. I was driving bobtails. And I didn't have semi-license, but I never had an accident. But I got to tell you, I had the best time going down emergency lanes where the cops always pulled me over and they would have to look at the sign with United States Mail, and I said, you can't stop the mail.
And what's the one thing on that truck that you don't see on any other vehicle out here?
Oh, you got to have fun with this one.
There ain't no license plate on it.
That's right.
There is not any license plate on any postal truck out there.
Or it says U.S. government. That's all it says with a white plate.
Now, if you're in like my area where it's, and that goes back to, remember, we're a little older than some of you people out here, but there was a thing called Mayberry RFD. What did RFD stand for? Rural Free Delivery.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're using your private vehicle, yes, they contract with you differently. Okay? You will have a tag on it. The ironic thing is you don't have to have one. And a lot of people don't know that. So, and then that leads back to your Social Security number, and it's attached with your birth certificate. And that's how they act, as if they own you. Okay? And we're getting ready to put up pictures about that from the GMEI. It's taken us quite some time because I've actually had to take pictures of it so that people can actually see it. And it actually explains right in there what an LEI is, Legal Entity Identifier. And the one line that I can't get out of my head, it goes the who's of who and the who owns whom. Okay, well, where did they get this thought process that you owned me? Okay, that's not the way this design was set up. The design was supposed to help the people on this continent until the government got itself back to out of receivership, until they got themselves out of receivership. And they should have been out of that a long time ago, a very long time ago. The IRS, and most people don't know this, the Internal Revenue Service was only set up between 1944 through 1946 for a period of 2 years. Okay, and it was only to procure enough money in order to finance that war of World War II. And instead, they kept it going because nobody challenged it. And it's going on to this day. Now, the interesting thing is what Trump has done, because he's actually gotten the Fed together with the U.S. Treasury and also the IRS.
Okay. For that one.
So, and that they all fly under the Office of Management and Budget. And the Office of Management and Budget is at 1500 Pennsylvania Avenue. Trump's on the other side at 1600. Okay, so in reality, you could write the Office of Management and Budget and ask to literally do a contract to walk away. In fact, when you do it correctly, they're supposed to give you a passport card, and then you're supposed to get a card from them. Now, what we're trying to do on our side is to figure out how to set it up, because we're in the age of technology, because they want you to fill out all of these forms. And one thing we found, that seems to be concurrent with all these forms, and it's a pain in the butt, anything you use from the IRS, it always says under penalty of perjury. Cross that out as a self-governed individual.
Right, right in that you're self-governed. Also, too, when you do that, do your own, use their form, put it on Word, and erase the things that perjury, take out the dots that they put in, and make sure that you put in the paperwork so it's lawful, but it's their paperwork written lawfully, not legally.
Well, you can attach a letter to it. You can literally attach a letter to it. The other one is
for the paperwork.
You've got to watch. Well, you also got to watch how you put the paperwork with it, because in the old days they used to have a seal. You usually used to use wax, and you had your own mark to stamp into the wax. And you would put that over the folded paper yourself. You didn't have to use their government envelope. So you can create your own stuff. That's the idea of self-governance, to create for yourself, and to allow them to see that you're a self-governed individual, right from wrong. So.
Oh, I got to throw this one out. See, now we're hitting this one so people comprehend. 5 CFR 2635.702. Use of public office for private gain. So that means if a cop's writing a ticket, that's private gain. There's no injury, there's no personal property damage. The revenue collect, they have stuff in the books, but people don't comprehend how to read this stuff when you write your criminal complaint, putting these stuff in it of what they can and cannot do. And see, I just went through an argument this last week with 2 guys, and the week before with a couple of other people. I want my day in court, and I was like, do you get what's going to happen if you put this letter in? Why would you want to go to court? I want to have my day in front of that judge. And I'm thinking to myself, you just want to go sit there and bitch and thinking that you're macho, and then you're going to find out you just got bitch slapped. You just want to put the paperwork in, and you don't want to hear nothing. You just want to get that letter saying your case was dismissed. And then you write a thank you letter to the judge, and then you file the charges on the cop for violating his job. Well, you thank the judge for doing his job. See, there's a way of doing this so it's properly done instead of so it's negatively done. Because we already know your birth certificate is a federal banknote. And there's actually been people that have traced the numbers and typed in the numbers in the dollar bills and found their Social Security number on dollar bills around the country. And remember, the most important thing, there has to be a corpus electi. No corpus electi, no crime. So, and that's the point, is looking at this. The penalty for hiring, this is the other point I love. Penalties for employers hiring illegal immigrants. That means they lose their business license. By law, you can't hire illegals. And then there's a structure in the law. Now that law is That is 8 U.S.C. Code 13248. And then we got the other one where the president has the right to say who's in this country and who's not. And they're bitching going, oh, the president shouldn't have a right to tell anybody who's in this country. The whole point with the native structures, when you read the immigration laws, the real immigration laws, they did it to protect the bloodline on both sides. We knew we had immigrants coming in. We knew they had the natives we had to protect first. You know, and they keep going after this Reform Act. They did this Reform Act, and this was done by Pelosi and all them in 1996. That was the Democrats for the terrorists, and that includes Bill Clinton. And that's the year that they allowed Muslims to come in without telling the public. They passed a bill, and even the Republican Party didn't even know they passed it. Because remember, they had a majority of the vote, the majority of the seats, so they didn't have to tell everybody in the world. They just passed it. They had a meeting. They passed it in the middle of the night, and then they came out and said, we passed this act in 1996. I mean, this is what goes on. But the law still says if you're bringing in or harboring any aliens, it's a federal crime. You know, that's why these people need to go to prison. That's what got to me when what's-his-name didn't want to, oh, God, brought his name up last time. I can't remember his name. You know, Hicks, I can't remember his name. But anyhow, you know, he's doing his militia and all this stuff, and, you know, he never filed to protect himself. If you're going to be doing this, you have to know this game. You have to know the talk to walk the walk. So go ahead. There was a couple other things we were going to bring up.
Well, that's the other interesting part is now if you're actually arrested, they do a blood test on you. And when they do the blood test, they come back and actually tell you what and where you came from. So they're defining your status before you do. So you've got to be very cautious about doing that. The other one, yes, when you're filing your paperwork, you want to give them at least a 10-day grace period. And that is so that the paperwork can be delivered to them. If they want to rebut it, they can turn it back to you. If you don't hear anything in 10 days, you file a second one saying, okay, you must have silently acquiesced because I haven't received any paperwork for you. So
and
this is the
silence is acquiescence by law, and I have that law, too, we can provide.
You know, and that's where it comes into, you send them a second notification stating, okay, I sent you one before. This is the basis of that. You know, and that's what you want. You want your backings of it. The other one is a lot of people don't get this. Okay, the states were not as a unified situation yet. When they came out with the federal laws, it was for everybody at the time because the states hadn't become even unionized yet. So federal will always take precedent over state. And that's what you've got to get your head wrapped around. When they start telling you that they actually have jurisdiction. Okay, I mean, I had a judge tell me straight up, I have jurisdiction. Okay, they cannot distinguish that for themselves. It has got to be done with a panel review, okay, like a tribal council, you know. So, and that's the thing. You've got to be able to know how to handle yourself, you know, and that's the thing. You want to stay out of court. They don't really want you in there in the first place. They got so much on the dockets. They're backed up, year and a half by now. You know, on the average, you'll be lucky if you get in there in 90 days. But that's the whole idea. They want you to sign a contract because then they can turn it into a bond and sell it on the Securities Exchange Commission, the SEC. Okay, and you can even pop up the SEC and see what's going on there. That's pretty much our next plateau is to step into that realm and see how that, you know, how that attaches itself with the GMEI, utility, the Fidelity insurance situations, Fidelity investments, and the discount trust, and man, I can't remember the last two words on that thing. I'm going to have to look it up, study a little more on it. But you know, it's not a hard design. It's just a matter of figuring out the jargon they use and rebutting it and saying, "But what about this over here?" Back to the fact of
with them, you always want to put a question.
Exactly. The other one is, you know, because of the way it was actually designed in 2007, 2008, when they had the, you know, the crash, And they bailed out Bank of America, which is very interesting because that's where we were going with the situation with Trump. Trump is going after the banks. 36 to about 40 of them popped up. And he's going after every one of them. Bank of America is one of the ones at the very top. J.P. Morgan and all the J.P. Morgan subsidiaries and anything with J.P. Morgan is on there. He's not playing games. And what he did was he attached that and he put down in there that they're going after him because basically what they're using is your Social Security administrative card. Okay, and how they do that is they attach themselves by you signing any kind of agreement, contract.
Doesn't matter, a water bill, a garbage bill, car loan, anything you put that Social Security number is where they're latching onto it. And it's done
well, even if you don't want to use your Social Security number on the GMEI, just type in your phone number, your cell phone number.
Yeah.
And it'll tell you exactly how many people are attached to your cell phone number. Okay, you're giving them gifts. This is how they do it. They do the contract, but they assume trustee over it. And then they just go ahead and send it into the Treasury and notify the Office of Management and Budget and the IRS.
And we even have abandoned those money in a situation, so you abandoned it, so they're claiming it.
Yeah, and you actually have the right to claim it back. Even in the courtroom, you have the right to claim it back. I even just went through that with, a court-appointed one. I was like, I just want to settle the accounts. He's like, well, you can't do that. The heck you can't. There's a thing called Standard Form 30. Standard Form 30 modifies the contract. They want you to use the Standard Form 24, 25, and 25A, but you can actually pay them off with a GSA bond from the Standard Form 28. And if you really want to get into it, you can actually read up on the entire 28 situation. Gene Keating has one called the Prison Treatise. And Gene's in his 70s. He's been doing this for 50 years. He took multiple classes to learn how to become a CPA or an accountant. And then he started noticing things. And he was like, well, wait a minute, this doesn't add up. And he did the same thing we're doing here. He read and he read and he read and he figured it out. And there's plenty of stuff out there. I think you can get that. There's a couple different websites you can go to. I know Anna Von Reitz has it on hers. But there's a few others out there that have them on theirs, because we're all trying to get this information out. There's Friends in Law on Facebook. There's a lot of good people on there trying to help others out. You can go in there and pose a question, and you'll get 20, 30 people helping you out. They ask for donations because we all got to eat. And that's what we're trying to figure out now because in reality, there's a way that they're supposed to be actually, like I said, they're making $2 million off of it. It's supposed to be a 75-25 split. We were supposed to get 25% of that. It's $500,000 a year for write-off. My dental could be taken care of. My place could be taken care of. I could have a brand new car every couple of years. And that really is passing the commerce and getting the flow out there of credit. But the sad part is they didn't think that we were trustworthy enough to handle this.
Well,
and that's really sad.
Employees going, let me take care of you. It's like people don't realize I used to go around and call for a job. I used to walk on a street corner, look for a job. I didn't go to the state building and go to the unemployment office and say, hey, I need a job and I need permission, so I sign your contract. So now that I'm your slave to the state because you gave me a job. That's exactly what it means. So when you go to the unemployment office and you're getting a job and they send you on these job referrals, you've got them dictating to you what's going on, and that way they can track everything you're doing on your job. They have people that watch you. I mean, this is not a joke. I mean, I watch PHS, with the way their public employees sit there and watch people and go to the bars and watch people until you know who they are. I mean, I've been in the bars with, where you're watching the district attorney laughing with people and people don't even know who she is, and then when you walk up and you say, hey, DA, what's up? And everybody starts looking at you going, what are you talking about, Ed? So don't you know that's the Lincoln County District Attorney? And then all of a sudden everybody starts running. And it's like, what? You guys didn't know that? Are you that stupid? You guys been telling her what now? See, I mean, you know, people don't pay attention to who's what in their neighborhood. You know, that's why when I always like to know who's in my neighborhood. You know, that's why in my area, you know, I'm not bashful. I got a guy that was sitting out across the street one afternoon. I went out, man, the guy's like, what's your problem? I said, what's your problem? What are you doing? Of course, I had something on my hip, you know, and it's like, what are you doing here? Well, I'm just out doing something. I'm doing a survey. I don't give a shit what you're doing. Get the hell out of here. You know, my neighbors we don't authorize you to be here. And yes, we do have that in our communities, that's what the British terminology is. But we do have that territory to say that we don't know who these people are, don't come here. Or, you know, this country is not as free as what people think that it is. We're not open to the world. We are open to our brothers and sisters of the bloodline of this soil. And that's the one thing, once people start grasping this reality, you know, because everybody's letting all these immigrants coming in and, they're doing all this. I mean, we stopped housing development in the state of Oregon because they're going to put in, you know, 300,000 Muslims here. All at the taxpayer expense. No shit. They were going to get new cars in New York City, they do, New Jersey. They get a new house. They get brand new cars. They get on the average of 8,000, what is that, 12. So for a family of 4, they get $5,000 a month of food stamps. I mean, and this is one thing people don't realize. So they're using your credit and your situation for immigrants. And then you sit there going, we need to protect these people. We need to have these immigrants. They need medical, but I don't need medical. I don't need dental. But then we're out there bitching going, we're not getting it. And these people are laughing to the bank going, you know, you guys don't get it. We're taking it from you. You know. I mean, it's been in the newspaper and the media again. Obama's mother is making 13, basically she's making she's making $180,000 a year off of Social Security. That Obama got her.
It's $13 million a year.
Is it $13 million a year?
It's $13 million a year or $13 million a month. I just read it earlier.
Yeah, no, it was. I thought it was. You know, basically, it was $130,000 a month. I thought it was.
That's when she was taking care of them. Now she's on the retirement set of it, and that was the way her contract was set up. But the ironic thing is, you know, that's just like with us. In reality, since 2000,
never in the system. She's not an immigrant.
Well, the other one is, since 2007, 2008, when we bailed out Bank of America and J.P. Morgan and all the other ones, AIG, okay, they came up with what's known as the Sarbox, or Sarbanes-Oxley Act, okay, which leads back to the Bankruptcy Act and leads back to Glass-Steagall, okay, and it was a modification. The ironic thing is nobody's receiving their paperwork for their government, okay? You're not receiving any paperwork from them as a shareholder or stockholder in the United States corporation. So they're violating their own rules and guidelines. I prefer to say guidelines because, you know, rules always, for some reason when you mention rules, there seems to be a conflict. You know, everybody wants to make a discussion out of it. Look, you set the guidelines, you know, and you're supposed to follow them. Okay? You came to us. You know, earlier you mentioned democracy. You know, how many people know the difference between democracy and a republic? Okay, in a democracy, 51% decides what the other 49 do. In a republic, you need 80% of the votes. 80%. Not 51, but 80%. They figure 10% ain't going to show up, or they can't, okay, for physicality situations or mental situations. Okay, the other 10% are going to be undecided. Okay, so they capped it out at 80-20, and that's the whole thing. If you don't have 80% of the voting situation from the people for the people, it cannot pass. You know, you don't elect officials just to make up their own decisions on their own. Okay, that's why they used to have a town crier coming through the town. Hear ye, hear ye. There's going to be a meeting. Now they want to put it in the public eye or they want to put it on the computer. Okay.
And then they don't want the meeting because they want you to send your suggestions in writing so they don't have to respond to you.
or they give you a certain amount of time. And this is what really cracks me up, because when it comes to a private individual, a private man or woman, flesh and blood man or woman, child, okay, because they all think of us as children until you do an age of majority type paperwork. And they only give you a certain amount of time, okay? You know, when you're under that private situation and they bring you into the public has a time span. The private man or woman, there is no statute of limitations. You can throw that right out the door, right out the window. You can pour it on the ground, you know, because that's a bunch of horse crap. So, you know, and trust me, I'm thinking pitchfork right now and how many people I like to like stick in the backside with a pitchfork. I guess my horns are growing in my little red tail. Where'd you go?
I don't know. I never worried about my horns growing.
But anyhow, I guess we kind of tied everybody up, and we really should like let other people jump in here. It's just, you know, we want to try to get the information out to people.
Oh yeah, but people also too. You can always speak up and say my turn or something. You know, I know it sounds like we just get going on and we just ramble, but you got to speak up.
Ed, kind of hard for them to speak up when they're muted. You haven't told me to open up the floor. You told me just to get Chief on. That's it.
It's my fault.
It's always your fault. What do you expect?
All right, let's open up the floor. See that you don't have to bitch slap me anymore in public.
Well, I may not have to, but I like to.
All participants are unmuted.
Encourage him. I like when he does it, so I'm just going to encourage him. I get a jolt out of it, so.
Bad enough, I walked myself into it.
You do have a tendency to paint yourself in the corner. Please go for it.
All right, I'm sorry, this is probably a little bit off topic, but I was having my kids go back over the amendments.
Speak to the phone. We can't hear you.
I was having my kids go back over the amendments since school year's getting ready to start up, and this time I was really paying attention to what they were saying. Came across the 7th Amendment. I remember you said that common law is England, but in the 7th Amendment it says in suits at common law. I'm not sure. I mean, if you're going to Article 1 court, how would that work?
Okay, well, Steve, do you want to stab at that one, Chief, or you want what? The bottom line, when it comes down to common law, what it says on it, you got to remember that this was written by natives, and the British government is still trying to control it. So that's why the courts have said these things that it doesn't apply. So that's the main thing. I'm going by the court administrative rules because common law is a British structure, so that means majority. If you got 51% common law, that's ruling over you. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes. Thank you.
Well, you see, and the other one is, you know, let's think about that common law. Let's break off the law part. Okay, do you have common sense, common knowledge? Okay, most people do. All right? I mean, how do you feel about what you're reading? Okay, because it's your beliefs, not their presumptions or assumptions.
But you got to remember, common law and common knowledge came to dirt, hunting and fishing, knowing how to cut a tree down, knowing how to build a house. That was common law, not paperwork, not courts' administrative rules where I need to go hire somebody to pay them to listen to somebody's bullshit trying to put me in jail.
Well, what they're trying to do is get you in default. Okay,
right.
so they can appoint the attorney, the Commonwealth attorney, if that be, or the state attorney or county attorney.
That way you're incompetent.
Yeah, and on top of it, so they can actually attack, you know, they can take possession of the trust, and then they become the trustee of your property, you, or your account, which is the IRS, you know, Social Security card. So, and believe it or not, Trump's out there on top of this. He knows this stuff. That's why they're so adamant about trying to go after him over his taxes. And, that's probably the worst thing they can do because the man's not an idiot. He's writing it off just like most corporations do. And we actually have...
Yeah.
So.
And the other point, he ain't stupid because if his accountants screw up, the accountants are liable. That's why they got insurance on them. Do people comprehend that reality?
Well, what I want to know is what they're saying on that school situation. What is it they've come up with? Because that better helps us to know what you're going through so that we can maybe research it, and, next Saturday we can discuss it even more.
All right, go ahead. Let the guy speak. Go ahead, speaker.
It's nothing. It's just that the kids are getting ready to start going back to school, and the teachers and stuff, they're teaching an agenda or whatever. It never correlates to the same thing that I'm teaching them. My son
right. You can correlate that in writing to the school district for them to teach it. You're paying them. So you could write curriculum, too, to put it in.
That's probably where you're going to have to go to the school board.
Well, I know, but he could write it and introduce it, and then they're going to tell him to go to the school board. Well, let him introduce it so it starts talking around the classroom first. You want to get people speaking so that way you get divide and conquer going.
Yeah.
Well, the issue, right?
I'm sorry. I was going to just say the only thing is my son is in 7th grade, and he's going to be taking Texas history, and my daughter's going to be taking American history. So I was going to try to give them, do that same thing, have it where ask those questions, explain to them what I've taught you, get them to start doing where they start talking, and then when they call me up to school and saying, well, he's causing a problem or she's causing a problem because they're saying something totally different from what the teachers are teaching, and this is what they're supposed to be following.
Well, that's walk up with a book and say, here.
Well, I see where he's going with that. What he's saying is the school curriculum.
Right, okay. I got where he's going, but that's where you have to walk up with a book and say, here's the evidence.
Oh, I know. Yeah, it's just I was gonna let the divide and conquer happen with them, let them say something first, and then I come up and back them up with all this proof and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and then do it. But no, that's why I was going back over the Constitution and the amendments, and I had come across that, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. And I remember what you had said. That's why I just had a question, because I want to make sure when I tell them, I'm explaining it to them correctly, so that they can fully comprehend and be able to, not be wrong in what they're saying when they explain to others.
Right. Well, one thing I like to bring to everybody's attention, in Turkey, now they are doing is marketing children's blood and administrating their blood so that way they can track them. So they're taking samples of the kids and claiming ownership of the bloodline of the child.
Well, don't forget the one we discussed earlier in the week, and that is because they're under, all the governors have pulled what they've done in the 48 states. You're going to have to keep an eye on the school itself anyway, because what they're trying to do is you kind of do any kind of bucking, or the children try to do any bucking, they're going to be, wanting to talk to them about, do you have a COVID-19 situation, and remove them from your family.
Right.
But then again, that leads back to what Trump did, earlier in the week, where he's going after the court systems on this stuff. And that's the other one. If they're being tested with that gun, that is a radiation gun. You probably want to do some paperwork before they get back to school and stating that they will not point that gun at your child's head.
Tell their gun to their head, the forehead, or anything, because you have no evidence of what the chemical radiation of that gun is doing.
I'll give you one that'll really mess them up. you can go get a radiation detector, okay, and hold it near it. Okay, nobody seems to want to do that right now.
I've done it. That's YouTube.
You know, that's one of the ones. There's actually a video on it where they did the radiation coming off from the 5G towers, and you're amazed at how much radiation is coming off of those 5G towers. So, you know, and you know, I'm actually hanging out with a friend of mine's kid right now while she's taking a little bit of a sabbatical to get her head straight. You know, and it's because she just needed some time. She kind of got scammed by a scam artist on a dating site, you know, and I feel for her. Well, I don't know anybody that hasn't gone through that when they've been single. But the one that concerns me is, you know, them pointing that radiation gun at someone's head, you know, and they don't know what they're doing. I mean, we're talking about non-professionals here. They have no toxicology license. They have no nursing license. You know, that's the biggest issue. When they try to do it to me at Walmart one time, I was like, what do you think you're doing? And ironically, you know, this is where the foil hat kind of joke comes in. But I actually had a piece of aluminum foil, and I held it up in front of them because that will knock the radiational rays coming at you back towards them. But that was actually for my protection because they're like, oh, yo, what are you doing? You know, and my question right to them was, are you a nurse? Are you a licensed nurse? And they're like, no. I said, okay, that's going to really be a problem for me because you're also not a licensed toxicology individual. Okay, you don't know what you're doing with that thing. And that's the problem. You know, that's like giving a loaded gun to somebody that's never shot one before and has no instructions on how to operate it. You know, they don't even know, you know.
Trigger pull on that trigger is.
Yeah, is the safety on or off, you know? So, and I feel for you because, you know, and I feel you're in the right direction on that. I really do because, you know, seriously, you want to teach your children the proper aspects of history. And that's one of the things that Ed and I have actually been, we're involved in right now because the natives want their version of what happened to them in the history books. You know, nobody knows about the 60 million, you know, men, women, and children that were, you know, murdered here, you know, for divide and conquer situations.
Well,
you know, let's take a look at.
Look, with the Indian tribes, they're still getting killed, you know, by the state officers and this stuff. None of it's in the media.
Well, and then take a look at what they did also. I mean, they gave tainted blankets and clothing that had smallpox and. You know, so, and then the other one was, what else did they do? Let's take a look at what they did to the blacks. They actually shot them up. You're going to go on about vaccines. They shot them up with syphilis.
Yep, in the military.
So, you know, this is not, you know, why do they create things that destroy? You know, I can't roll with let's let bygones be bygones when it comes to that. You know, you're destroying people. You're destroying life. Stop it. You know,
that's a bygone situation. To me, that's an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. You got to be realistic. If they're tearing apart your family, destroying you, okay, it's like, you know, that's the frustration. You know, and then you got, sometimes women will go so religious that they don't listen to the men anymore. You know, all you do is God's going to save me, and then they're sitting, no wonder they become old women and maids and spinsters.
Well, another suggestion is to ask them exactly to see what their curriculum is, how they have that curriculum set up. You know, those are your rights. You know, it's your child. It's your property. It's your biological property. You know, the government can't say, oh, I have the rights to your biological child. Horse crap.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I'd be like, okay, pop out a DNA test there for me. Oh.
But, I mean, that's the frustration that we're right now in this thing today. People don't realize how it is, and other people don't want to believe it is really this. So, and the ones that are woke up are going, how the hell do we get out of this thing? You know, I can't remember the name of the movie, but I want to get out of here alive. You know, and then the other one is Idiosyncrasy. Look at their medical structure in that comedy. That was a good movie, you know. See, people don't even get some of these movies when they do that. Oh, Rondo, you know, and then you wonder why you got no no water, because everything had to be made into Rondo. And then every time that they would speak up, Rondo, Rondo, I get paid $100 every time I say that name. That's why I say it. You know, and that's what we're living right now today. We were warned this back in the 60s and 70s. I remember the big push in the 80s in the rock and roll industry, and then I watched the difference that was going through in the 70s and 80s when they're putting subliminal messages in movies and music videos, and you start looking at who's doing what and how it's being done, and you start stepping out and you start going, holy shit, there's interesting production. You know, that's what I always say, step out and watch the production. You'll be amazed what you learn. You know, what is that, Galaxy Ghost or what is it? Galaxy, that's a good movie. Kurt Russell's in it.
You're talking,
Kurt Russell, Guardians of the Galaxy, or Universal No, not, that's Van Damme, never mind.
Yeah, Guardians of
the Galaxy.
Those. If you sit back and watch all three of those movies twice or three times, you know, watch the series, sit down and watch it, and you'll be amazed what you put in together, what these guys are talking in. Their script line was outlining what we're living right now. See, people don't realize that. They go to the movie and they don't listen to what the words are. You know, I'm going nuts when I get this thing where, you know, Pelosi and all these people are backing us up with a Turkish TV that came out and said how they're, you know, going after to own the bloodline of the children. So that way when a child's born, you know, they're going to have to certify that child to the state. So that's why we need to start moving on this stuff and getting these things done and get these things filed and start moving now. We're going to start going public because I'm going back up to Portland here. So I'm going to try to get a format, and I want to be able to probably, hopefully, go to, you know, a Portland City Council meeting and have a little political fun. I haven't been to Portland City Council meeting in, God, it's been 30 years. But I can show up with them because it'll be fun for me to show up for, you know, the mayor, because I knew the mayor 30 years ago in politics in the Senate and House with bills he was doing. You got to remember, these people live in this structure that they live in. You know, because they bounce this stuff around, because they're all acting as lawyers, you know, so they can make them money. It's all about passing the buck around. And then the peasants sitting there wondering what the hell's going on. You know, let's not forget, when the mother registers that child with the state, she gave the state over to the Bar Association. And all these people going, Ed, you know, the bar is not the British Auxiliary Register of the King and Queen. There's the Oregon State Bar, the Texas State Bar. They're not part of England. You know, read the foundation of their paperwork and you might be educated. You know, it disturbs me when the people that tell me this stuff. It's like these guys right now, they're going out and writing their own bonds, and they're going to end up in the same trouble that Bruce Bassett did, you know, with Anne von Ritz, and Anne von Ritz said that she'll have nothing to do with Bruce and all that, when she was the one who walked them through it and educated them all. And then all of a sudden, they walked through and they crossed the line, and, you know, and, I mean, I did talk show. I even got a talk show YouTube that in 2016 I did with Bruce Bassett and them. You know, they tried to set me and David Lee Buse up. You know, with the Continental Marshals and the Continental Sheriffs with Anne von Ritz and all that. I mean, I've got the YouTube video. So that's what gets to me when they play this shit and they're doing these games. You know, so, and these people are getting hurt, and these people don't care because there's money in the bank to them. Because they got another client that's walking through the door that goes, I need help. You know, it's like Francesca and all these other people, you know, Dave and all these people that doing all the same thing. And I don't want to get into all these names. But when I watch all these people that are out there doing this stuff, and they're taking information from, you know, from other people, you know, and using their information without comprehending of what it means. You know, they get it, they get an idea, but they don't comprehend the damage that it can do. And then they do that, and they don't care about the people, so long as those people send them $1,000. You know, I mean, it's like watching these people sending money, you know, this week. I mean, I had another guy that called me up, and then he calls me up and tells me, I'm going to go with this guy. He just told me to send him $1,500. He's going to guarantee my court case. Oh, okay. Go spend your $15, $100 on him. Because I wasn't asking for $1,500. I was asking to keep the website up for another year. You know, he did that, and all we had to do is challenge what? The barcodes. Oh, that's right. What do they call that? The copyrights. You know, but this guy's going to get over there, and, you know, some of you guys know him, and he's going to get over there, and nothing's going to happen. You know, I'm going to give $1,500 to this guy. This, you know, this happened, what, Wednesday? And it's like, you know, I mean, you know, we you know, me and Chief knows this with other stories. You know, we know this that people have been doing. And it's like, the main thing is hit the copyright. And the other point, when it goes to your child protective services, ask them who owns the child. Prove the ownership of the child. You're claiming that that's my property. I'm not saying it's my property. I never claimed the property. So prove ownership. Prove the copyright on that kid. Like I said last week, and I've said this before, and I know people get upset with me, you know, but it's like, okay, the woman is an adult. She opened her legs. And the people say, well, it's like I had a lady friend of mine used to get upset with me because when we were together, you know, well, if we do something or we break up, you know, I get half of what you own. I said, bullshit. You came in my house, and I already own this stuff. You know, if you're here for my assets, it ain't going to work. If you're here because you wanted to have some life with me, you know, then that's the thing that we can work on. You know, and then it got to the point where she was just after the assets. And it's like, it really pissed me off because, you know, it's like, I don't give a shit. You know, when I'm dead, who cares? But right now, as I'm alive, it matters. And it matters that the kids need to be educated on the truth of this stuff on the Civil War, you know, especially on Napoleon, on the circumstances of the stuff that we fought in the War of 1812, you know, the Revolutionary War, the truth with the Indians, of how Indians went on both sides in the Revolutionary War, you know, the Mohawks and the other ones fought on the British side, and, you know, knowing this, and, of course, you know, it's like they were giving them arms and food, and, you know, they were basically bribing them to kill their brothers. You know, but then the army on the other side, you know, the military, when the bluecoats were giving firearms and stuff to the Indians. So it just depended on what side that you were on of the situation at the time, and that's what we're living right now. So the main thing is we got to hit this copyright situation. You know, who owns the child when the child's registered? Rescind the contract with the state. File a new contract that you own your bloodline. You know, if they use it, that's a federal crime. Oh, that's right, because that's identity theft of a child. Oh, you haven't read that one, have you? Your mother and father legally cannot even give a child a Social Security number by law. They can by administrative because the child becomes a person, a ward of the court when you register it with the state. And if you don't register it, that's exempt. You know, they wrote the administrative laws. You know, it's just reading what the administrative laws really are compared to what we think they are. So, Chief, go ahead.
Well, there's that one in the divorce decree under care and maintenance, and in reality, if you read that, both parents are supposed to be protected, and they're not doing that. You know, if you're the parent that has, you know, custody of the children, okay, they go after the other one, and, you know, if they don't make their payments, then they lock them up. That's actually unlawful. You know, and that's what people have to get through their heads. I mean, it's unlawful because they're supposed to take care of both parents so that the child grows up properly. You see, and that's the other thing.
It's you arguing on both sides, the aunt and uncle and the cousin, and everybody starts arguing and taking sides because you did that to the child, you did that to aunt, uncle, or you did that to daddy, or whatever. Instead of everybody setting up and paying attention to protect the child and not getting involved with their emotions of whatever fantasy in their mind that they've been programmed in.
Well, there's actually a good case out of Ohio on that where a family of 8 was murdered because one side of the family got so irate about it that they committed murder. You know, and who really wins in that one? No one does, not even the child. You know, they consider us as children unless we actually accept the situations we have and we claim our age of majority. The age of majority is supposed to be 18 to 21 in certain states, no later than 25 on a trust.
Some is 14, like Mississippi is 14. Them states are 16.
Okay, but you're going by
the union that are 14. There's 6 that are 16, and then basically everybody else is at 18.
Producer, bust his chops, please.
Chops busted. There, done.
You're going by their guidelines again, okay? You're going by their guidelines, okay? In a trust situation, you're supposed to be age of 25 before you usually receive the trust. Okay.
Well, at 25, but they consider it an adult, not at 18.
Right.
And that even goes to old English law.
But you see, if you actually read that part of the trust situation, that's the inheritance part of it. And that's what you've got to get into.
Oh, right.
You know, that's really what it was supposed to be. That was supposed to be our inheritance to take care of ourselves and to be able to take those that are coming up that we're raising. You know, and that's the other one is we're trying to figure out a spin on that for the Social Security card situation when you're getting it for a child. Okay, since you're supposed to be the acting agent for your own and for theirs, you know, how come you're not allowed to get certain things? I mean, if you take a look at the CESA, which is college...
You're not getting a check out of it, raising the child, instead of the state getting it and then giving you a check, and there being a second or third party in the payment.
Exactly. You know, the other one is if you actually look at like the Roth IRA setup. Okay, there's also one for children. It's called the College Education Student account.
Yeah, they do that in Oregon too, that they're pilfering the money from.
You know, that's a CESA, and it's actually non-taxable. So when you get your heads wrapped around that stuff, you know, that'll lead you into a little bit of what's really kind of going on with the trust situation. You know, and that's the idea is we're trying to figure out how to do the paperwork so that we can actually get control of the trust. Now, we're okay if you want to do the 80-20 split like it was originally designed. You know, we're okay with that. But let's take care of the people at home. They're starving children here. You know, how many of these radio stations that are religious are always saying, oh, you know, dig deep in your pockets, give to us, and we're going to send it over to Africa. We're going to send it over to Japan. We're going to send it to China. Okay?
Italy.
Yeah. How about, you know...
kids don't have clothes and shoes, but what about the American kids that don't?
Well, here I'm going to go back in our day again, you know. I mean, you know, charity starts at home. Charity starts at home. So, you know, let's start here and correct the issues we have here. And then once we get, you know, to some kind of perfection, if you want to go in that direction, okay, then we can help others. You know, what's the old saying? Can't help others until you help yourself. So...
So, I mean, this is the one thing that we got going with all this craziness. I was trying to look at something else here. But my computer is having too much fun again. But see, I mean, that's the one thing that people don't comprehend, you know. And it's like, you know, I'm getting ready, you know, I'm going to be sending out my medical stuff because I figured, you know, what I'm going through. I mean, I don't know what, you know, I mean, I know my body ain't working right. So, and I know my teeth are that bad beside my heart and my lungs and everything else, so I'm caught in a dilemma with everything. But I can't bitch, I'm still here. So, I mean, you know, I'm caught in a dilemma, but then I got to do some other things to make sure that this dilemma is worked out. So it's just one of those things of what, why, and how. Now, in the vaccinations, now, if you read, I did send you the law on it, and I even sent you the form how to write your own contract on it and serve to the school board and the district and the state attorney general and your county commissioners. Everybody gets a copy because you want them to sign a letter so they're claiming liability for the vaccinations, the way it's written. There's solutions to the problem. You got to make it public. You got to make sure you walk down to that media. You got to make sure that's publicized in your media. You got to make sure that you're talking to the other parents around your neighborhood or anybody else you know in the state. It's right there. It's already written. I know for a fact I sent it. So get it going. You know, you have it, and so get the other people backing you up. You have to get them backing you up. You know, I hate to tell you, but that's the reality of the real world. You know, I mean, I gotta go try to figure out how I'm gonna pay $6 grand for my teeth. You know, I mean, and then, you know, I mean, I gotta figure out that one. You know, and they're running around at Harvard and all this shit with Camellia Harris, you know, breaking through the walls, you know, breaking the barriers, you know, on immigration, and people don't get it. They open up this country on immigration. You don't have a place to live. You ain't going to have a place in the woods to go hide out. I mean, all these immigrants are going to come. They're going to open up the border. They open up that border, you're screwed. I'm screwed. We're all screwed. You know, we are going to be in a civil war. That's a real fact. That's not a joke. Why do you think that? Have you ever noticed in your communities all the military vehicles you've got around your armories, or your military stations, or different driving down the road? You see a whole bunch of, you know, military or tanks sitting in a fenced-in yard. No, you can't see you know, security there or anything, but trust me, they got security there. But see, people don't get it. We are living this right now. If people think that, you know, Nazi Germany was bad, hey, you're living worse than Nazi Germany. You've already got the tracking record already going on. You've got them tracking you through your credit card, your phone, everything. And you and I had this opportunity to stop part of this stuff when it was going on. But we didn't have the knowledge then. Now we got the knowledge, now we got to stand up. So when it comes down to the stuff with the kids, it's coming down to the point where, all right, we got to file on the circumstances with the kids to make it a reality. And that's the one thing. I mean, when I went to the hospital, I filed my paperwork that if I died from some reason that is not explained, they're liable. And the doctors are like, whoa, and I'm like, hey. You know, I mean, that's the point. You're making them liable. They give you a shot. When I was in ICU, I want to see the drug. I want to see the MSD sheets. I'm hooked up on IVs and life support, and I want to see the MSD sheets, and these doctors are going, I can't believe this. They said, I want to know what you're giving me. I have a right to know what you're giving me.
Well, especially since you're funding them.
Well, exactly. I'm paying them, and then people go, well, Ed, Medicare, Medicaid, all these people are paying them. It's like, no, you guys don't even get the system. You know, you guys, most people don't even have a clue of the real system of what, why, and how.
Well, the easiest way to break it down is it says Federal Reserve note on it. It'll say dollar bill and an amount on it. You give it value, okay? And a note. I mean, you know, it's no different than a note on your car, a note on your house, you know, but that's the idea, is that we're trying to actually get people to comprehend how to write up your own paperwork so that you can say, okay, you know, I'm loaning you my gifts or my credit, okay, because that's really how this whole thing functions. You know, Walmart cannot survive without all these people crediting them. Okay, none of these corporations out here can survive without the credit from us. Okay,
Well,
so why aren't we getting something?
I got a gift card in the mail from somebody. It was a Walmart gift card. And I went to Walmart and I wanted to get it activated. And they said, we can't activate it without your Social Security number. And I went, what? And they said, we can't activate it without your Social Security number. So I just, I ain't doing it. So, somebody thought they were doing a kind thing when I told them, send it to me in, 20s. And it's like, so you're going to put me in the system? That's sort of what gets me. It really does get to me. So, when you do things, think about the things that you're doing around the people that are involved with you that are trying to save you.
Well, go to the basics of it. What they haven't told you was you were getting your own credit when you were getting a credit line. Okay? Here they're supposed to, have...
Line, personally.
Yeah, and that's the ironic thing about it is, they're not even reporting it under the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Okay? And really they should be because you're the one loaning them credit. Okay? You loaned yourself credit. It's just somebody moved into the trustee area position. Okay, and what you want to do is knock them out of that position and obtain that position and say, look, I'm loaning myself credit, and how it really works is that they actually get a portion of that credit also. Okay, and what you want to do is you want to move into the position of, okay, if I'm loaning you my credit, what am I getting in return for that credit? Am I getting a brand new cell phone? My monthly payments are going to be what? For helping you out for crediting your company, your corporation. That's really the alternative the alternative what we're trying to figure out here. And we're getting step by step. Like I said, it doesn't happen overnight because there's so much paperwork involved, and then you have to know the Title IX, Title 12 stuff because you've got to know the bankruptcy issues, the banks, how they function. You've got to know how the Securities Exchange Commission functions. And it's not difficult. It's just you've got to get your head so that you can actually present yourself as somebody that's not some, what do they call it? Ignorance of the law is no excuse. Okay, you don't want to be ignorant. Okay, not that I'm calling anybody ignorant because, that's the way they treat all of us. So.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You don't want to be a ward of the court.
No, the other one is, the other one is, we were talking about that earlier. Nowadays, they don't even have to have a paper bond. They can create that bond on video, on a website.
Electronically.
Scan your name and put it to it, okay? And that's one of the things Trump is against, because he's saying, basically there's no paperwork. So you go in, when it comes to your public servants, they do have to have that paperwork. That's why, like Ed said, who actually owns the child, okay? And let's see the paperwork. But you want to be able to flip that paper over like Braille and feel that imprint from somebody's, autograph or signature or an endorsement, whatever you want to call it, mark. You want to be able to feel that embossing on that paper. If you can't feel the embossing, okay, and this is the one that I like to do when I'm in a courtroom, I'll lick my finger. And if they tell me it's a true copy, well, how can it be a true copy? I wasn't there to witness the true copy. I wasn't allowed to come in and bring a couple witnesses with me to prove that you actually, it was a true copy. And that's the one thing. If you go to the state or vital statistics and they say, okay, here's a copy of your birth certificate. Okay, well, how do I know that's a true copy? And that's one of the ones that we're working out and we're trying to get the paperwork on now. And I know how it is and I know how I am. We're bulldogs about this. We're like pit bulls. We're going to latch on. We're not letting go. And we know that it's going to be, hundreds to maybe, thousands of different avenues when it comes to their statutes and codes that we have to figure out. And then we also have to figure out if they're actually lawful or if they're just going by the legal statutes.
Right, statute, code, administrative rule, or if they're going by treaty or constitution. And that's the one thing that people got to get through their head. They need to question it, but they need to find out their bloodline and heritage of this soil. Now, if you notice, there are people actually talking about it on TV and talk shows now. So, and that is the big point. Know your heritage and bloodline. It's up to you to prove you are real.
Well, and then I've had great luck on the LDS website, the Latter-day Saints, because they were one of the first ones, even before this actually hit, when it came to internet and things of that nature. I mean, I remember my aunt going through the LDS people way back when Roots came out. When Alex Haley did Roots, the movie, she decided she wanted to really, find out about our family, heritage, and that led my mom into it. And they were missing some pieces. And LDS is actually a very interesting one. It's not like Ancestry.com. Ancestry.com wants you to pay up front, where LDS is more of, can you send us a donation? And I've had great luck on there to prove the point. I am the 15th bloodline direct descendant and 14th bloodline direct descendant of Powhatan and Pocahontas. And through that, we found out that the original contract with the British between Powhatan and the other natives was done under threat by kidnapping, duress, and coercion. And that falls flat on its face, because even by their own administrative guideline rules...
Right, they kidnap Pocahontas and take her to England?
Yep.
Right
yep, they held her captive.
Or her out to all the big rich men?
Yeah, and it was really sad. It was really sad. They destroyed a family. What difference is that than family court right now? This is what they do. They divide and conquer, but you're dividing a family up. I'm kind of a little bit bummed out about the conquer part, because you didn't really conquer here. What you did was you destroyed. This leads right back to like Bill Gates creating a vaccine for something that he has a patent on that he created to release to people. I mean, why do you want to keep destroying? For some reason, there's some people out here that got some seriously mental issues going on.
I want to respond to this gentleman that put this up on the deal, because Indians were not allowed citizenship until 1924.
Well, and then they were also included into, back in the day, I mean, they were included in history on the 3/5 situation when it came to the, back then they called them Negroes, and I hate to use that. I prefer to use the darker skin-colored, people.
Yeah, but see, what they did, the reason why they didn't want to allow them citizenship, because it would go against the treaties.
Exactly.
Right, because of the treaty and the Supreme Court decision of 1823 that says the treaties are the law of this land. And I post that all over. You guys. So when they do this, this is like what they're doing is they're trying to, oh, well, we made these rules. And this is not a crazy native fact. This is not a native fact. This is a British fact. So, and that's the one thing that people need to comprehend, how these things work.
I mean, it's like the old days when the farmer used to go to the bank and borrow from the bank in order to get his equipment taken care of, and he could hire workers so that he could actually work the fields and get the produce in. The sad part is the way their design is, the farmer ends up losing everything.
Well,
he doesn't get
Tyson's Chicken, what they do with their farming and raising pigs and stuff. They've finally been able to put it on TV now. If you don't do their crops, you lose their job. And then you lose all your stuff because you get the loan, you're the IOU on it. And that's the point that people don't get. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
No, that's okay, because that leads into the W-2 forms and W-4 forms. And that's really some of the stuff you need to get wrapped around your head is actually the forms from the taxation department. That's where the 1099-A, which is abandonment for A, 1099-B is actually for the bank, and then 1099-C is for the claim. Plus you got to file 1096 with that, 211 forms. There's other forms, but there's modification forms, like the Standard Form 30 is a modification of contracts to renegotiate terms, so, that's when that lawyer told me, oh, no, you can't settle the accounts. Well, bull, because I know enough in my head and because of what I've read that you can use a Standard Form 30 to modify the contract and renegotiate the terms. What you're doing is you're putting a freeze on the contract until they come to the table with you, so that you can actually sit down and negotiate something between the two where it's beneficial for both sides, and then that also leads into like Standard Form 1414, 1416, and 1418. It's really about, learning about how their structure works. Once you learn how the structure works, now you can modify it. That's what you're doing is you're saying, I'm self-governed here and I see what you've got going on, but that doesn't work in my particular situation or with my particular issues right now. I have this going on, and, that's the other one. A lot of people don't know it, but, last year they only sold like 32 to 38% of the brand new cars they built. That's 60 some odd percent out there that's just not, to 72% that's not being sold.
And stuff right now, literally. They're sitting in airport parking lots and they're being billed on it. And people don't even get that one.
And it's actually our credit that helped them keep afloat. When they say, well, we're coming up with a new bill, what they're really saying is we're sticking you with this bill. We're going to use, we're going to use your Social Security card and your gifts, and that's the other one Ed and I were bouncing off earlier this week. How many people have seen it? I mean, didn't Hillary Rodham Clinton and old William Jefferson Clinton get in trouble for receiving gifts from foreign countries? Didn't Obama and Michelle go through that? Okay, so there's some stipulation on the gift giving there,
right?
And we're we've got a few things in the fire because this is the way it works. You can't forge a sword unless you have the steel to heat it up and smack it down with a hammer, and that's what we're trying to do: is smack it down with that hammer.
And that's the one thing people got. It's like I said, coming back to child support is like, who owns the child? So you're putting in and asking the questions. You don't want confrontation. We need this evidence. We need this proof. I'm asking a question. Now they're going to try to come back and ask you direct questions. No, you come back with a question. It's that simple. When you do it, make it simple, stupid. As like when people say, make it simple, stupid. Okay, I guess we're getting over time. So
I was gonna say no. It's keep it simple, stupid. KISS. Keep it simple, stupid.
I guess when you ain't got teeth in your mouth, your words come out wrong. But anyhow, but
yeah, I'm gonna jump off. I'm gonna jump off and say thank you to the people and everything tonight. Hit me up later.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say, we should call it an evening. We've been on for almost 2.5 hours, and, we'd like to thank everybody for joining us. We'll get some more out there. Please make sure you send us emails and stuff. We do respond. We are getting this stuff out there. And the whole point is knowing your situation. You have to know your standing. So when you go to court, you have to know who you are, what you are, and why you are. And that's where it comes down to, is knowing your standing in court, knowing if you're lawful or legal. And people will argue that, and I get people arguing with me all the time. Oh, it doesn't matter, I was born here. Yeah, what year? How many generations? People don't realize what the 14th Amendment is a ceasefire. Remember, the Civil War was a ceasefire. So when you read the 14th Amendment, it goes into the Dred Scott of the ceasefire. That means you have to read the whole case. That means you can't just go read the whole little cut notes because you've missed a lot of the case by that, and that's one thing people don't get. But the stuff is there. So we have the structure to do it, so let's do it. So anyhow, with that, we'd like to thank everybody who joined us tonight. We'd appreciate it. Keep the emails going on. We keep the responses going on. And so that's the whole point. It's called communications, and we could teach that to the kids. we can make sure that their generation ain't enslaved. So with that, may the Creator take care of you. Make sure that without mother and father, none of us are able to be alive. So with that, you all have a good evening, and make sure that you take care of and plant seeds. Collect rainwater, grow food. Have a good evening.
Thank you for listening to Disclaimers by Ed Johnson. It is Saturday, August 22nd, 2020. And, yeah, I like to bust Ed's chops at times because I wish I could have busted Chief Willie J's chops because he said people. He's evidently talking to non-entities, fictional entities. But for all the living men and women out there and children that are actually listening, thank you for listening. Thank you for paying attention. And whoever wants to send me the notes for today's class, I would really like to have those notes because I got distracted by my bloodline multiple times. And I missed quite a bit. So with that, guys, we'll see you next week.